Hi, everybody. Welcome to D20 The Curtain, Behind the Curtain, where a bunch of Oklahoma theater geeks get together and talk about Dungeons and Dragons. How's everybody doing?
Oh, man.
I would like to point out something very important about getting together to talk about Dungeons and Dragons.
And that would be?
Hit record.
Yeah, we should hit record.
Yeah.
That's an important part of this.
And have a pickle.
No. Throw the pickles away. They're
No.
gross.
Sweet pickle.
So
sweet
gross.
pickle.
Let's introduce the crew. I'm Jerome. I'm your Dungeon Master.
I'm Timmy, and I play Altruian James.
I'm Kara, and I play Nezrin.
I am Jennifer, and I play Ula Reed.
What's up? I'm Jared. I play Jade.
I'm Jody, and I play Lapis.
And this particular episode, we're going to talk about the first two sessions. Before we jump right in, a couple of announcements. First of all, we are excited to be able to integrate into our show going forward the use of music and sound effects by the amazing folks at Sirenscape.
Hey.
If you don't know what Sirenscape is yet, you do not know what your game is missing.
Mm-hmm.
Check out their amazing library of ambient sound and sound effects
I love
at Sirenscape.com. Once you've visited their site and fallen in love with their product, you can try Sirenscape for free without even registering. So please check that out. It's an amazing
You're
resource for
amazing.
Dungeon Masters, and it will
You're
bring
the
your game
best.
to life. So check them out at Sirenscape.com.
Everybody loves free.
Thank you,
I can
Sirenscape.
attest that their sound of running water works really well.
Is that for personal use?
Oh,
Is that
make-
like a...
Yeah,
I was going to say, did you have scared pee?
I did. I did.
I did until Sirenscape.
Until Sirenscape came in and saved me.
I'm too sober for this.
So let's jump right in, folks. You guys went from playing for a birthday party to unwinding at the theater and now playing for a podcast. How does it change the dynamic of your game when you're playing for an audience?
The pressure of an audience, and the stakes are higher because now we have people actually watching and listening. And so then you have there's a couple of reasons. One, because when we've recorded these last two sessions, we haven't been able to do it in person. And so not being able to like read the room or gauge each other has been a huge transition for me. I can tell a lot just by sitting next to someone. And now we're doing it via Zoom. And it's really hard to kind of feel the other players. I think everybody's like reluctant to speak first because we don't want to overlap. It's different. And now also you have this feeling that you have to be on all the time. Like you could take a pause, but now you take a pause and you're like, oh, well, they're not going to listen. I'm pausing too long. And it's kind of just embracing that new style of kind of a gameplay. And also maybe not feeling like we have to be so always entertaining, like you feel like you have to be entertaining constantly.
Yeah, that's a hard part for me. Just trying to pretend like there's not a bunch of people that might be listening. Hopefully, might be listening.
I would also like to point out that there's a whole new layer of vulnerability where we're playing. You guys are used to saying somebody else's words on stage, and it's a totally different effect when you are saying your words, and there's no text to lean back on. This is all coming from you, and there's no armor in that way.
There's no script.
Yeah, so it totally makes you more vulnerable.
Well, in addition to doing this for a podcast, we have had to change our format itself of not being in the same room since we're doing this on Zoom. And so we don't have the personal connection that Kara mentioned earlier. And we don't have the luxury of having the map right in front of us to work.
Distance and things.
To have an idea of our spatial
We're having to
situation.
read the Zoom as opposed to reading the room.
Oh boy, you're just full of them. I think you are now delivering one every episode. I've noticed.
You got to get your dad puns in there.
It's become I would like to refer to this segment as Jared's Gems.
Speaking of the game and the characters, the different elements you're kind of integrating, let's talk a little bit about your choices for these races and classes. Well, why these particular choices? And we talked a little bit about the story hook, as it were, that was going to get you guys invested in this adventure. But I'm curious why you chose these races and classes. Was this a thing about balance? Was it just kind of a gut instinct? What?
I had never really played, and Jerome invited me to play, and he said, "Hey, you're going to be a Earth Genasi fighter," and I was like, "Okay," which is my typical response to anything Jerome asks of me. I just go, "Okay, I'll do that." Yeah.
Sweet.
And so that's how I discovered this character, was that I was told, want to play this? And I just yes-anded it.
Well, because we kind of basically created a pre-generated a character, and then you roll the stats. You and I got together so you could roll the stats.
And we added some stuff in, after I kind of came on board regularly. We kind of tweaked her and modified her and kind of went in and made her a little bit more my own, the way I saw her. That's all I've got to say about that.
Right. Yeah.
I chose Tiefling because I've played it before, and I just sort of like the idea of someone that has an innate bad side or dark side, demonic side, that has a story arc to create, because we all want to be heroes in these adventures, or most people. I don't want to speak for everybody, but and just with that innate Tiefling demonic bloodline, it gives them an arc to strive for and an obstacle to overcome.
And you're kind of a little demon yourself.
Yeah, and I like the evilness.
Yeah. Yes, Timmy. You little devil.
I'm a nice person.
Jade, why changeling monk?
I mean, it just sounds really cool. I mean, like when I first kind of heard about the changeling class, I'd never played a monk, but then the changeling race, I was like, that just sounds really cool. And I originally was thinking, I'm going to make him this really kind of maniacal, chaotic character. And then once you kind of laid down the setting, I was like, it might be more interesting if I fit him into the story a little differently. But I thought the whole idea of a changeling that didn't necessarily like changing was kind of cool, so I stuck with it. I feel like it's neat.
I've always just kind of been drawn to the sorceress, because I think in my dreams, if I was transplanted into an actual fantasy D&D world, that's what I would end up. But more than likely, I'd probably just be like a bar wench or a peasant. But I like to pretend that's what I would be. And I mean, at the end of the day, who doesn't want to be like a sexy witch?
See, I'm still wanting you to be transported into the body of a dwarf. We want to put your.
So I think I feel like that could work for me though. Like
you could pull off a beard.
I want to have one the really long beards. He's got to have a drinking problem and be like a womanizer. So basically, my inner self kind of thing.
Really raunchy.
Yeah.
Really raunchy dwarf.
Basically, Kara.
Yeah. ZZ Top.
Kara with a ZZ Top beard.
I mean, what's happening? Come on, ladies. Get in here. It's as big as the beard.
I don't.
Okay.
I'm stopping.
Just a thud.
Is there a soundscape?
Zip, thunk.
Yeah.
I selected a Osmar because I think they are the dopest race. I like having wings and innate, healing abilities, and sort of the opposite of Timothy, the idea of an innate goodness. And I chose a cleric because I was trying to fill a little bit of a gap that I sensed in the party, a healing type of gap, because I don't like the idea of death. So that was my reasoning behind a cleric.
So let me ask you this. We've talked a lot about, what we feel comfortable in Dungeons and Dragons is bringing those core storytelling principles in our acting backgrounds or our writing backgrounds to the game. But, to be fair, it can be easier said than done because it requires some effort. So let's talk a little bit about the challenges and the opportunities that come from having experience as storytellers and how that's different than what you're doing in the game, how it requires a different set of skills and a different amount of effort to just kind of bring that to the table.
For me, I mean, it was kind of I had not played. I'd played one game, I think, with you guys, and it was a marble base game. Yeah, I am Groot. And then, got invited to come in and play a test run. And so I had kind of wanted to play, but was hesitant to because I thought there were like all these rules and I didn't understand it and I didn't know what I was doing. And I was like, I'm going to go in there and they're going to go, why are we playing with this Yahoo? We don't know. But it's very improv based. It's very, for me, it was getting to create a character somewhat on the fly, but also in that, I kind of knew who she was, but I got to make up a lot of dialogue and make where she was going.
Jared, what about you? Does it strike you different? Does it feel different? Is it more difficult than what you do?
It feels different. Like we were saying, when you are performing on stage, regardless of whether it's improv, you kind of know where you're at within the setting of the show. So it's nice to kind of have a guideline to what you're doing. So one of the biggest things for me has been trying to get out of my own head, and I'm consistently concerned that I'm going to sound stupid or something I'm going to say isn't going to fit within the context of what's happening. And it's weird to do that. I know that when we were playing kind of our private sessions, I didn't feel that as much because it didn't feel like we had an audience. The audience was the people we were playing with, and we're all very comfortable with each other. So that wasn't that big of a deal. But podcast, I'm kind of like, oh, there's people listening. I got to make sure that this is on point. And so that's been very interesting.
And it's that jumping in without a safety net.
Right.
Yeah, for sure.
I think honestly, that's what makes you such a good player. I enjoy you a lot as a player. I like that you're a lot of times quieter than other people, but it's like when you say something, it's like exactly what needed to be said.
Oh, well.
Yeah. It's always great. It's always entertaining.
Well, I like you as a player.
Well,
thanks.
I
like all of you as players.
No, but you know what I'm saying. Like, I just think that you always have something really great to add to it.
The first time we played the kind of trial session together, I remember it really resonated with me how rich and detailed Jade was from that the first time he was forced to tell a lie. And
I wish we got that recorded.
And we got to see that really kind of unique quirkiness about him, which I thought, man, that's going to be so much more fun to explore over the course of this adventure. And even though you're still finding it, you can already see where he's developed to over the 5 or 6 years that they've been separated. So I can't wait to see where it goes.
Well, that's cool.
Personally, I just feel that we're still, 2 episodes in and still trying to find my character. And I mean, I know my backstory and I know what I envision him to be, but finding his actual voice, I haven't nailed that in, because in theater you have a rehearsal process to explore and playing. We've had a couple of episodes that we've done without recording, just as trials, and I was able to play a little bit, but I still haven't found the voice that I'm comfortable with and who Allie is yet.
When you're looking at both the voice in terms of like your dialect, but also his voice in terms of his dialogue and how he approaches things. And that's kind of an interesting component to all of these characters, because, some of you are using voices different than your own. And then certainly these characters have different points of view than you do individually.
Yeah. I struggle with just, especially now that we're not near each other or together playing, any kind of tension or dynamic or argument or anything like that. Like, it's hard to read each other. And I have this like fear of making someone feel uncomfortable. And especially like with Jennifer, our characters have this kind of dynamic already set up from their childhood of this tension, but it's almost hard to feel it and play it right now because I can't feel and play, can't feel her. So you're kind of more nervous or reluctant to push any kind of boundary when you can't feel like, it's almost like you can't feel your scene partner. And that's been a struggle for me, is like, how do I gauge that?
Right.
And I think That's probably been my hardest part.
Well, that's, like passing the ball to your scene partner. You can't really do that very well because we're all looking at the camera on the laptop rather than at one another. And so that makes the situation difficult to read.
Yeah. And it's like, there's that, we talk about our senses, like, our sight, our hearing, our taste and everything, but there's that one that we really don't talk about, which is just like perception of feelings and how, when you're around someone, you can kind of feel them, you can gauge them. And when you're not sitting in a room with someone, it's really hard to gauge their temperament and how they're feeling in the situation. And, like, are they comfortable with where I'm going with this? Are they uncomfortable with where I'm going with this? And that makes it more, I think makes me more reluctant to do things because I can't feel you.
That's one of the things that's really fun about being able to play with a group like this is you can kind of say, hey, remember you guys are in a safe environment. And if they're playing back, then that means that they want to engage that scene. They want to see where these characters develop. And part of that self-consciousness comes from, do I have their trust? Do they know that they're safe with me, the player,
right?
As opposed to this argument that's happening between these two characters. And I would strongly encourage you guys, keep exploring, because I feel like even though you're not next to each other and you can't feel that inherent sense of, now I'm handing the ball off to you, to piggyback on Jennifer's analogy, I can see it in you. I can see you guys building a thing. You just have to trust it and trust that other player is on your side. The characters can be in conflict, but these two performers are making the conflict work because they're so engaged in their part of the storytelling. And it's really compelling to listen to, I think. And I certainly hope so.
Well, and Kara made a point about communicating, not even just within the confines of the game, but communicating with each other, since we can't read one another's emotions as directly, to make sure that we are open and the dialogue is outside of the game as well. Was this okay with you? Were you comfortable with this? Did I take it too far?
Right. Communication, I think, is key. And I mean, I know, like, even in past campaigns that I played, it's hard because you don't want to ever hurt anybody's feelings or, offend anybody, but it's also kind of part of the game in a way that it is an act. And, there's always this fear or this possibility that somebody can take it personally. And I think that's why communication in this game particularly is so crucial.
And things are so new right now that we all each have 5 different stories that we want to tell, and we don't want to step on each other's toes and make you tell my story when you have something totally different that you're trying to tell too. And so it's just finding the balance of telling all 5 of our stories.
A collaborative effort. And that's what's so cool about it. And something that I'm going to encourage you guys to do, because we are on this platform and we're working digitally and virtually, is that you communicate so much in a room with your body language, with the exhalation of breath, with the way you complete an idea or sit back in your chair. And part of that will come once we've spent a little more time in this platform. But I also encourage you, use those verbal cues, finish the dialogue and then end it. Narrate that you put your hand on a shoulder or that you turn away from the table. That will kind of help the other players to go, okay, they've just handed off the ball, I'm going to pick it up. Because you're communicating yes to the audience, but you're also communicating to each other. I'm going to pick up the ball and run with it. And when that happens, the other 4 of you will instinctively become support characters. And do I take a side in this argument? Do I support what they're doing? Am I uncomfortable? And giving them that cue with your body language on the camera, with the way you narrate what you're doing, that will help tremendously, I think, or hope.
Yeah, I think that to the point of being on a Zoom and then also recording for a podcast, narrating what you're doing probably helps in that aspect as well. Whereas in your room, a small gesture would indicate something that you're doing or help alleviate situations. For the purposes of a podcast, it probably helps to say something like, "Oh, I gesture," or "I do something," because it helps our listeners know what's going on as well.
For sure. Jade and Lapis, we obviously talked about in the beginning taking these ordinary folks who are all adopted by this singular maternal figure and brought into her home at different points in their lives. They can be as young as 3 and 4, and they could be 9, or they could be seemingly adults when they came to it. But building this family dynamic. Talk a little bit about what you want to achieve in creating that family dynamic, specifically because Ula, Ali, and Nezrin have all gone off to find their place in the world. They've left this home to pursue some other part of their lives. And you two, for reasons that we'll divulge in the course of the story, have stayed close to home and were there over the last 6 years. How do you approach that differently in terms of your relationship with these guys?
Well, I think that, for me, I know Lapis doesn't necessarily have a closeness to Nezrin, Ali, and Ula, because when she got there, they kind of left. Well, not kind of, they left, period. But her and Jade both being there, I think that there is that closeness in that they've worked together, they've rebuilt things together, they've cared for Seraphimia together. And I think it's also really interesting that they're very similar, but they're very opposite. Their approach to how they deal with things as they arise. And I think it will be interesting to see those two parallels.
Yeah.
Jade is a softer character per se, I think.
Definitely.
Then Lapis is
Right.
run in, do it my way, punch, punch, punch. But they both have that background of feeling different, of feeling not accepted. So I think it'll be interesting to see how that plays out for the two of them. Just because he is the only person in this party that she has any real connection to.
Yeah, because we played one kind of short session where you were incorporated into the family, and then now we're just kind of getting the ball rolling with this whole backstory of the two of them having a relationship and having built a rapport with one another. And so I think that's really cool that we kind of have to just from the get-go be like, oh yeah, we have this history together, and I'm the Bruce Banner and you're the Hulk Smash, and we want the same thing, but yeah.
Taking it from very different perspectives.
Yeah.
Well, and Lapis is not a talker. She doesn't discuss things. She goes, this is the way we're going to do it. Done.
Yeah.
And Jade, knowing these people a little better and having much better communication skills than Lapis does. And I was, well, now, and I think he will be a calming force for her, which I think is good for her. We'll see how much she resists.
I think they complete each other. I think so far they're completing each other.
Just like real life, Jared, you complete me.
Oh my God, same, Jody. Same.
You're the Jerry Maguire.
Virtual hug.
It sort of leads me into the next question, which was, and I'd like each one of you to give me a shortened answer so that you don't have to give too much information away. They're all adopted. They've all come to this home at different points, and they're called back to do this, thing that all of us at some point have to deal with, to say our goodbyes to a loved one. But I'm curious for these characters, do they see each other as family?
I mean, Nezrin, when she was adopted by Seraphima, she was just, a toddler. So this is the only family she's ever known. So in her mind, yes, like her siblings are definitely her siblings. For her, though, Lapis is this outsider who kind of came in right as she was leaving. They didn't have enough time to kind of develop any kind of dynamic. And her perception of Lapis, I don't think necessarily is, oh, she's just family, I think everybody always has this thing where when they're confused or they don't understand something, they try to find someone to blame or an outlet. And maybe in her mind, that is kind of what Lapis became.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah, and I don't think Lapis, I know Lapis doesn't view any of them as siblings. She doesn't view Seraphimia as a mother. She cares for Seraphimia. She protected and wanted to protect Seraphimia. So therefore she wants to protect Seraphimia's children. But she doesn't view them, she views them more as protectants than as family who cares about her.
First episode, I think you were talking about mother is waiting for you, and then your mother is waiting for you. So making that distinction for her.
She views Seraphimia as their mother.
Gotcha.
I'll reiterate with what Kara was saying, that Ale truly believes that he was brought to Seraphimia as a baby. So he's mama. That's the only mother he knows. And so he was here when each the siblings showed up, and he truly believes that each of them are a member of the family. He loves and cares for all of them. Lapis, it came like a week before he left. And so he doesn't know her, but he knows that Mama took her in and considers her one of, and out of respect for Mama, he will treat her like family. He doesn't know her and doesn't have a relationship or the history that Jade has with Lapis, but he will see her as family.
And I think for Ula, she unequivocally sees all of them as family, and Mama urged them to stick together. So that's it for her.
Kind of done and done. Yeah. Continuing on that point, so you've got these three strong-willed female characters, and I'm just curious for you guys to talk a little bit about what that dynamic is for you and what you want to bring with it, both in the game itself and sharing it with the audience at large in terms of female players and female characters.
I think that, especially in this modern day society, women are often pitted against each other. We have this, we want to be united, but yet there's a lot of, inner like shaming kind of thing. And we tend to judge each other faster than we do unite together. And I think it's a big issue. And I think that what I'd like to see happen is these are three exceptionally different female figures, and they're all very strong and powerful in different dynamics. And even though there's maybe this inner tension between that, the story can be how we can unite these strong personalities and see them come together in a very cohesive way and get some shit done. And I think that's also like a story that it's relevant. So I think this is a good way to express how, even though we don't always come from the same place, we're all ultimately striving for the same goal.
Agreed. And, for me, I am a fan of fantasy. I'm a student of fantasy. And, more often than not, there's this sort of idea, first of all, that Dungeons and Dragons is by and large a bunch of, white dudes in a basement and Mountain Dew and that kind of idea. And while it's certainly not true, it's still kind of the imagination around it and the surprise that, women play Dungeons and Dragons and we like it. And there's also the beating the trope of fantasy, which is there's four strong guys with very different unusual personalities, and then there's a girl, and the girl's personality is girl,
yeah. third girl from the left.
She's always getting kidnapped, and we got to go save
the damsel
girl.
in distress idea.
Yeah,
and that's what I'm excited about doing is combating that trope and saying there's some women who have no interest in being warm and maternal. There's some women who like to stab people in their guts. There's some women who do like to be warm and maternal, and it's all perfectly fine. And it's all a facet of being a woman. And I can say my own self, thank you very much. That just sort of idea of the fantasy trope of we have our token woman. It's cool to be able to say, nah, not for us. Thanks though.
For sure.
Well, and I think kind of piggybacking on that, when we do see women in, especially in fantasy, and I'm like Jen, I'm a big comic book fan. I like my fantasy. I like my, Marvel movies. I like, all of that. When we do see those women, even if they are strong, even if they are fighters, they're still the hot chick with the big boobs and, drawn this certain way.
Chainmail bikini, baby.
Yeah, chainmail bikini, but I can still fight and win.
Gotta have some midriff.
Protect the titties.
Lapis,
covering all the vital areas.
For sure.
yeah, it barely covers, the vital areas, but she can, she's hot, but we'll let her kick ass because she's hot.
Right. She's kind of defined by that.
Yeah. And for me with Lapis, what I really loved about this character and when we were kind of building her out was that she is not sexy. She is beautiful to those who know her, because they get to know inside that rock hard exterior. But it's I wanted her to be frightening looking. I wanted her to be off-putting. I wanted her, because we see so many women, and if you're not, if you're too strong, then you're a bitch. Or if you're not strong enough, then you're weak. And this concept of being enough, and you have to be tough. If you're emotional, you're weak. And so I think it's really interesting to play somebody that is not, or that is really tough and is really strong and is frightening to look at and is this thing that you don't know how to gauge. And it will be interesting to see if I can find some of her softness as we play.
Yeah. Well, we talked about hard and soft limits early on, and what we wanted to include in the game and what we didn't want to include in the game, and we made really specific parameters. But listening to you guys talk, it fuels me further and makes me go, okay, how can I integrate some of those elements in the story so that they can explore those and those characters can explore them? Because that's really compelling to me. And then at the same time, you've got this dynamic between these men who are very different. I mean, they're almost polar opposite. I'm curious to know what Jared and Timothy think about how they're going to approach these characters and what they bring to the story and why.
Well, I think it's I wanted to play a character that kind of almost to what the girls were saying is I think it'd be kind of interesting to have a soft, very sensitive male character, not to necessarily play against a stereotype, but just as an interesting character choice, play somebody that is, holds their family at the highest regard and has a bigger heart than they do a weapon, but then trying to find an arc of sorts that shows him that there is a strength in being sensitive, but
for sure
can also be a warrior of sorts.
Well, and that's kind of cool because Jade is this monk who can do incredible amounts of damage, but doesn't want to fight if he can help it.
Right. I think he probably looks up a lot to Allie, who has kind of more of the older brother element, and definitely seems more strong-willed.
Right.
Yeah.
While Allie, on the other hand, I think he wants to protect all of his siblings and he wants to care for them, but as we discovered whenever we were rolling our stats, he can't. He doesn't have the strength. I mean, he's not the tank. He's can't do the damage like Lapis and Jade do. He doesn't have the magic that Nezrin and Ula does. He's a support character. I mean, he wants to be able to save them and protect them, but he can't. He cares for them all deeply, but he's also looking for his own path in the world. He also, since it's been 6 years when we played our 0 episode games, back then Jade was, brought to tears, whenever he accidentally killed a bear. But in these past 2 episodes, you see him front and center and kicking ass. And
Changed.
Allie has sort of, I believe, mixed feelings towards that, in the fact that, yay, he's come out of his shell, he's strong now, but he also misses his baby brother.
Now that he's fully embraced bear murder.
Yeah. Yeah. And, he wants to.
Legends of the Falls.
He wants, Jade to be that innocent that Allie never was.
Right.
So,
Well, and I think it's interesting that as we discuss both the male and the female characters, all of these characters have all facets. That's the humanity in them, in that,
Yeah.
we appear as one thing, but everybody is strong and everybody is weak and everybody is soft and everybody is hard. And I think it brings it to a much more human element than being necessarily a man, woman.
Right.
And I think that's really something that's really cool about this whole group of us, is that we're all willing to take that chance and take that risk and just be human per se,
Absolutely.
even though none of us are human.
Agreed.
And that's what's going to be really compelling about working together to create a story, because you do have these interesting juxtaposition. And tell me if I'm speaking out of turn, but I think Allie, because he's the oldest, has been thrust into the leadership position, but he's not the strongest. And so how does he use his ability to help guide them and lead them and thus protect them? You've got Lapis, who wants desperately to feel a connection with these people. How does she become a person who actually listens and contributes, but also allows others to take the lead? It's so many interesting facets that I think are opportunities that are out there for us. It's just a matter of finding those and then pursuing those roads, letting the rest of the party follow and seeing what happens because of it. That's what's really exciting to me.
Yeah.
And then lastly, we've talked about this, most of us as performers or as writers or as artists, what you're really hoping for is to become an artist, to become an actor, to become a director, to become a playwright or a poet. What you don't necessarily want to be, and this is sometimes what the world forces on you, is you don't necessarily want to be a woman
Actress.
or an actress. You don't necessarily want to be a Black director or a Black actor. You want to be an actor who happens to be all of those things. Just like a male Caucasian actor doesn't have to be qualified. He's a male white actor. Well, he's just an actor, and he happens to have all of those other things as part of his
Heritage.
Yeah. Ultimately, these characters are doing the same thing. Hopefully, it's not just going to be Nezrin, the hot witch. It's going to be Nezrin who matures and grows and develops into whatever she is. It's going to be Ula, who is not just the lanky, gangly one, but she is a force to be reckoned with when it comes to X, Y, and Z.
Yeah. I mean, to see their growth. They have a lot of opportunity for growth. And to watch, and then the thing that makes it interesting too is just like people, we grow and then we get scared and we step back, and we grow and then we get scared and we step back. I mean, it's like it's just kind of how the nature of the beast is.
Not a destination.
Oh, it's so sweet. That's our catchphrase.
So I'm going to ask you this. Having done these first 2 episodes, and we were really frank with each other off the podcast, talking about that those first couple of sessions were tough. That yes, we had difficulties with the streaming and we had difficulty feeling the room. But I want everybody to talk a little bit about how they want to develop as players, because part of our goal in this show is to get information from the community that helps us improve, to share what information we can with the community to help them improve. So where are you looking to improve? Where are your weaknesses as players, and what are you looking forward to developing in terms of those skills?
I will say that mine is to remember that it's a game, and that the fun of the game is playing the game and not always winning the game. You don't win every game. And accepting the fact that sometimes the situation isn't going to go exactly as I planned or go what I had in my mind is right, that it is an adventure and the adventure is in the unknown. And that if every time I'm great, and then there is no real reward, it just feels like, it doesn't feel real. And that to kind of just embrace that it is a game and it's fun, and to let it be what it is and let go of the control. I like to control shit.
Wouldn't have guessed.
Nah, me. No.
I think there's a couple aspects of it for me. The first is that this is going to surprise everybody here, but I'm a bit of a know-it-all. And it's true.
And that's why I love you.
It's
And I call
true.
you and go, hey, Jen, can I do this?
Well, and that's something that, hearing it and hearing it in the episode where, I go, yeah, you get another attack. Or, if you ask for help, of course I will provide, but otherwise I'm going to shut my mouth, because I think Kara made the most salient point, and that is that this is a game you can neither win nor lose. It's all about, sharing a good time with your friends. And I think that's really important. And it's not to make you shine. You're not sitting at this table to make yourself look dope. You're sitting at this table to help your friends become heroes, and perhaps you too along the way. So that's the first thing that I am going to work on, I promise. And I won't always be perfect, just so you guys know. But that's a D10, not a D8. Come on. But I also am... I need to make certain that I remember that I'm at a table with my friends, who are in turn trying to make me a hero, and feel safe and trust, because I would trust any of you guys in my day-to-day life. And I have to remember that even hiding behind my paper golem, Ula, you guys are still underneath your paper golems, my friends. So.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, and for me, it's that, besides these 2 episodes, I'd only played twice before. And so I love it when Jen goes, hey, you get to roll an extra D10. You get to roll you get an extra this, you get an extra that. For me, Jen, that's really incredibly helpful, because I don't know those things yet. And so for me, everything is challenging about, not the character aspect. That's not a problem for me, but the do I get an extra roll here? Do I know how, when, how, where? And so the extra things, like last time when we got off that second episode, I was like, I really need a ranged weapon. And I really wish that I had a ranged weapon. Well, I did. I just didn't know I had it.
Yeah.
And so, finding the details of it are my challenge. And that, I think, will make me, I feel like not as strong a player as far as content goes. And so, Jen, anytime you want to say to me, you get an extra something, I will always take an extra something. I'll always take the extra side of fries.
That's part of becoming a player, is you're not going to be really fluent when you first start. And part of it is getting in there and making those mistakes and rolling with the punches, and that's okay. Like that's part of it. Like, it's okay. And we're all still, there's always something we don't exactly know, or we might get wrong. And it doesn't matter how long we play, there's something new always coming out too. So it's almost impossible to keep up on all of it. I think you're just as good as everybody else here.
I absolutely welcome that kind of stuff, because I'm not the most fluent player, and there's some things that I know just because we have been playing quite a bit, but I'm not necessarily saying that I want to be reliant on helpful hints and stuff, but it's helpful hints. I enjoy it when it's like, oh, hey, no, roll this and remember this. And I think, I don't know, I think it's kind of a way that we help each other play. I think that's kind of one of my goals as a player, as well as a character, is to help each other out along the way.
Any other elements that you as players, or mechanics as well? Because I, for one, am still learning the mechanics. I don't know how Mercer and Colville do it. There's so much information available to us. There's so many things to learn, and the best you can offer is I will look that up, or I'm going to make a decision in this moment and I'll go back and fix it, which is one of the reasons why we say we make mistakes in the game. That is something I hope will happen over time. But right now, for me, it's trying to be present. It's trying to not get caught up in the technical. It's trying not to get caught up in the minis and the dice and that, but to hear what you're saying and to honestly adjudicate, well, if that happens, if that character does this, how does the crowd react? How does this monster respond? And to always, as a DM, I think one of the things I'm hoping is to be more yes and than anybody at the table. Can I try this? Then absolutely, yes. I got so laser focused in on trying to figure out what Nesrin was doing in episode 2. She was trying to make a distraction and there was no trees because the map had no trees. But maybe the thought occurred to me after it was over is let her find a tree and see what she can do to make a distraction. It may not be successful, but at the end of the day, it continues their effort to build the story. And that's what I'm here to facilitate.
I personally need to get out of my head because I overthink things. I think of what Timmy would do or what's the most strategic thing to do in the game and not necessarily what Allie would do. And as an actor, director, writer, artist, whatever, I want to be able to tell the story and be honest to my character and the best way I can.
Well, and there's a real balancing too in that to me, because I agree with you wholeheartedly, but there's also the balance of being really true to your character, but also being a good partner with everybody else at the table, because, you know, just even going back to another game and another campaign that we played, where the circumstances kind of led all of us, me, you, and Kara, into this place. And me as somebody who was trying to honor my character, I was like, I should just leave. It doesn't feel right to be here. But at the same time, you have to honor that you're there with a table full of people who are spending their Saturday with you as well. So it's balancing kind of all of those disparate pieces to both honor your character, but also be a collaborative storyteller. And that's a really hard balance, I find.
I'll get you a WWAD bracelet, Timmy. What would Allie do?
Oh, there you go.
We know what Allie would do. He'd leave Nessie in the woods.
and loot the body.
Loot that body.
Loot the body and leave her in the woods.
Allie has no money.
And no morals.
Actually, 1 copper now.
There you go.
I will say, like, in my past campaigns, like I said, my biggest aspect has been, trying to win. And I had to realize that this is not a game of winning or losing. And this time around, my biggest thing was, I'm just going to play. And sometimes that means, a twist or a turn, but it's just like, I'm just going to do what I feel instead of thinking, is this going to get the right outcome? I'm just going to do it. I'm taking the Nike approach this time around.
We are accepting sponsorships
as I run around trying to set a house on fire.
Hint, hint, Nike.
That's what was so cool about the game. Once I was introduced to it, because I'd seen people play it, I'd heard about people playing it, but it just didn't seem for me. And then my wife, who is completely invested in this world, and I'm trying to figure out what is she looking at when she's watching these streams. And what I discovered is, oh my God, this is right up my alley. It's literally a group of adults sitting at a table, giving each other permission to put a towel around their neck and pretend to be Superman, to do all of those things that we did as children when we embraced that fundamental skill of making believe. And then you spend the rest of your growing up with people saying, don't do that. Don't believe that. That's a waste of time. It's not what adults do. All of us that have chosen to act for a living have heard somebody say, what's your real job? And here as adults, I'm 40 plus years old, and I've discovered this room, this table is safe for us to absolutely make believe. It's the coolest invention. And so the winning condition is getting together with your friends and collaboratively creating a story. It doesn't matter what the story was in your mind or where you thought that was going to go. I watch each one of you say, okay, I'm going to take the thing he just gave me and I'm going to run with it. And then somebody else gets a hold of the ball, and it's life affirming. We get to believe, and then we win by creating a story. And how cool is that?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
The story part too is neat because, like, once it's all said and done, and you go through this whole process, I mean, you literally have a story.
Right.
You know, it's like it's you wrote it together, and I think that's what's really amazing.
I love the surprise.
Yeah,
Yeah.
me
And
too.
we take it and share it with an audience. And as long as we hit record.
As long as we
Right.
get,
As long as the dragon doesn't eat us all.
As long as we don't die in the first episode.
you're alive so far.
Yeah.
That's going to lead me to my last question for you guys. So there are lots of people who, like me, had never played, who think, oh, that would be interesting, but they're either nervous or they're new, or, you know, they just simply don't know how to go about it. And they're terrified about screwing it up. It's overwhelming, the amount of rules you look at. It's, are these people going to accept me? Is it going to be okay? Is this too silly? It takes a lot of trust to put on your pretend side in front of adults. What's your encouragement? What would be your advice to new players about taking up this hobby that we've fallen in love with so much?
I would say, first of all, you know, make certain that the people that you're going to play with are people that you trust, or at the very least, you guys share a vision of what you want the game to look like. You know, I personally would have no interest playing in an evil game. That just isn't something that I attach to Dungeons and Dragons. I like the idea of being a hero, and a reluctant hero. Okay, sure. But just outright evil characters isn't something that interests me. So I, as a player, wouldn't seek a campaign out like that. However, I would assume there are people that are sitting with us now that would love to play in an evil campaign. So it's finding the campaign that works best for you and where you feel really safe.
I didn't even know there was evil campaign.
Oh, sure.
Oh
Yeah.
yeah.
And
Finding the right people.
Are we talking about like Westworld weird shit campaigns?
I mean, there are people that just play full on, they're the bad guys. And yeah, I just wouldn't want to do that. And again, that's a personal choice. But I think that's really important. And I also think, you know, decide what you want out of the game, and then make sure to communicate with the people you're at the game with. I think Kara said earlier, you don't win Dungeons and Dragons, you don't lose Dungeons and Dragons. You're just telling a story together. So your imagination is never wrong.
Well, and I would give the same advice to people looking to play it or wondering about playing it that I would give to somebody looking at taking an improv class. There's something very healing and cathartic about getting together with a group of people and yes-anding everything. There is this, you start to get into this feeling of acceptance and of feeling accepted by others by accepting others. It works out the side of the brain that most of us don't get to use all the time. We sit at our desk, we make spreadsheets, we make phone calls, we schedule meetings, we do these things that are very one side of the brain.
Right.
And now you get to work out the other side of the brain. And I think that it makes you feel more well-rounded. It's a mental workout. It goes along the lines of a meditation or exercise. That's a big one that we got to work out is brain. And I think that this helps that a lot. It gets you away. It gets you into just accepting other people's ideas. And I think it translates across the life board.
It's like theater.
Just like theater, just like improv, you know?
Yeah.
And to tag on to something Jennifer said was about working with people that you feel safe with and trusting.
Yeah.
And just when you're in your campaign, make sure you're in a safe environment that it's okay to fail and it's okay to not know. And it's a game and we're here to have fun.
I think it's important, if you're going to find a group of people to play D&D with, be like finding a group of people to trip with. You know?
That is so true, Jared. That is
Like,
legitimate.
It is true.
The only
It is so
people, the
true.
group of people you'd feel comfortable around. And so, yeah.
Yeah. So and the DM is the trip master. Make sure that nobody
Yep.
cuts themselves or
Turn on
runs
that
off into the
sirenscape and-
woods.
Ring it nails.
If you're gonna trip balls with people you
Yeah,
trust.
True.
There's the takeaway from this behind the curtain.
Well, I'm glad you guys were able to spend an hour or two or
Or four.
three
Four.
or four, since we recorded this twice, talking about this. And
No, we recorded it once.
I hope the audience has enjoyed getting to hear from you as much as I have. We are looking forward to the next time we get to do this. We love this game. We love this community. And we can't wait to bring you more adventure. Stay safe. have fun, be kind, and play the role.
Yeah.